So the England squad's come out, and Jarrod Bowen is not a part of it. He's been dropped by Lee Carsley for the Nations League games coming up, which are against Greece and Finland. I'm not surprised. I'm not at all surprised, to be honest. I felt that it was likely he would be dropped, considering not just his form, West Ham in general. Things haven't been great. He's not a player, is he, that's got a name straight on the sheet. He's not at that kind of level where he can afford to have a bad spell. He's always kind of on the fringe of the side anyway. So he has to be performing well to be in with a shout. So I think it's fair to say that things haven't been great for West Ham or Bowen so far this season. So it's not much of a surprise. But that aside, there's no denying that this will be a blow to the player. I'm sure he won't be happy about it. We know that it affected him pretty badly, didn't it, when he got he didn't make the World Cup squad during that Winter World Cup prior to the Euro. So yeah, it was it's a shame. Look, it's a shame for Jarrod Bowen. There's no two ways about it, but it is one of those things. I'm not at all surprised, really. I don't think that the form hasn't been good enough. I don't think when you look at a Jarrod Bowen perspective, he hasn't started the season great. No West Ham player really has. I mean, there's a couple you could probably pull out. Somerville's been pretty good. Max Kilman's looked all right. Wan-Bissaka, but apart from that, I mean, as a general, we haven't started the season great. So it's one of those things. I've got to be honest, right? I was watching when we was watching the Chelsea game, and don't get me wrong, it was a bad performance all round from West Ham, but there was a moment in that game when we broke, right? And it went out to Somerville on the left, and he broke forward. And I was watching Bowen, and he never looked quite right to me. I don't know whether he's carrying an injury or whatever it was. He was basically jogging up the pitch, and we were breaking. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why is he not going for it? I just feel like something's not quite right at the moment. So, I mean, I'm going to be honest now. This video is a bit of a selfish one, as in the way it should be. It's a West Ham channel. I'm just thinking of a West Ham perspective. I'm not really thinking about England or anything, or Nations League games, whatever. I'm just thinking about West Ham. And the selfish side of me, I actually think it's a good thing for West Ham that he's been dropped. Firstly, the obvious, you know what I mean? He's not going to be travelling. He's not going to be playing games and training with England. He's going to be staying at West Ham. He's not going anywhere. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think having Bowen back with West Ham, fully focusing on our next game, which will be the Spurs game after Ipswich, I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm sure they won't be doing any intense period of training for those 2 weeks. There'll probably be a fair bit of rest as well. Looking at Bowen in that Chelsea game, he looked a player that was tired. And I don't know whether it's just the weight on his shoulders at the moment with the captaincy or whatever it is. But I don't think this is a bad thing. I think, certainly from a West Ham perspective, it's a good thing. You know what I mean? I've talked about this, haven't I, previously about my feelings on Mikel Antonio and this Jamaica thing. I don't like it. I know that's me just being selfish, but as I say, I'm a West Ham fan. How can I not be? It just doesn't suit us at all, having him flying off the other side of the world every 5 minutes, doing these long journeys, long flights and long haul flights, etc. And playing all these games abroad. He always comes back looking half dead, and it takes him ages to get back up to speed. I just don't like it. So having someone of Bowen's quality and importance to the side, having now a 2-week break after the Ipswich game, do you know what? I don't think it's a bad thing. And as well, there's thing to consider is that when you go back to Bowen being dropped for the World Cup squad, a year or so ago, a couple of years ago, it really affected him. It didn't do him any good. It really said he suffered, and then he had to reassess how he felt, and then he came back so much better and determined to get back in the England squad. And I'm just hoping that this has the same desired effect, that it's a time for him now to reflect and go, right, things haven't been good this season. Form hasn't been good. And I'm not just saying Jarrod Bowen's to blame for West Ham's form. Right? I'm not saying that. There's plenty of reasons. Lopetegui was obviously taking a lot of the flack, and it's understandable. But the players, I think, as well, should be held accountable. That they can't have no blame whatsoever for what's going on. And I don't think that there are players within the West Ham squad that are particularly helping the situation at the moment. When I'm talking about here, our big hitters, our big players, big moment players that you expect to step up to the plate, I just don't feel like they are this season. I haven't seen performances of certain players that make you go, wow, they're really trying to get a result here. It always feels like a collective. They're all hiding a little bit from what's going on. And I put Bowen in that category. I really do. I don't get me wrong. I love Jarrod Bowen. I absolutely love him. I think he's a wonderful player, and I'm so delighted he signed a long-term contract. I want him to stay at West Ham for the rest of his career. So I'll make that really clear. But that being said, he hasn't been good enough this season. He so far in the opening, was it 6 games into the campaign in Premier League? He hasn't been good enough. I know he's been okay, but he's not been his usual standard. And as I said about that Chelsea moment, that was kind of epitomised that. You know, it was like a moment where I thought you should be busting a gut to get up this pitch. You should be dying to get in that box. Say, Summerville, give me the ball. I'm going to stick it away. It was almost just like, as I say, a bit of hiding. It was almost just running with the defenders, and it was almost jogging really at best. You know, and when this news came out about Bowen not making England squad, obviously the first thing is disappointment. You think, oh, it's a shame for him, but straight away, it didn't take long for me to think, actually, do you know what? This could actually prove to be a decent thing for us, and it is something hopefully we can take advantage of. Get him back, get him fully focused now and say, look, we have got to get this season up and running. Hopefully it's off the back of a win against Ipswich. I mean, that would be beautiful as well, wouldn't it? To end on a high, have a 2-week break, and then he can really then focus on the Spurs game and the uprunning like sort of next bunch of games in the league, because we need to get going. I mean, this season now is becoming a concerning one. I mean, I've got the preview coming up tomorrow for the Ipswich game. I'll talk about it a bit more then, my thoughts on it, but in terms of the season so far. But there's no denying that we really need now just to start getting some bloody positivity around and start seeing something to go right. West Ham are looking all right. We're starting to, you can see something happening. We haven't seen anything, have we yet? Nothing to get excited about. So, yeah, it's a blow for Jarrod Bowen, without a doubt, a blow for him. And I do feel for him in that regard. I don't like the idea of Bowen, who seems such a lovely bloke, you know what I mean? A really decent fellow, who's totally fallen in love with West Ham and vice versa for the club and him. You know, it's a match made in heaven, isn't it, since he's come? So I'm so pleased with how things have worked out with Bowen. I love the fact he's committed his future. But I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to be selfish on this and just be like, do you know what? I'm really pleased this happened. The last thing we needed was him going off Ringen, picking up an injury or getting a bit burnt out or whatever, coming back exhausted. We just don't need it. And also, I'll tell you what as well it does, thinking about it as well, it gives Lopetegui some quality time with Bowen. Because bearing in mind, a lot of the players are going to be going away. You're going to have the likes of Alvarez and Paqueta and Souček and all going off and to play their international football. So it kind of leaves like a sort of depleted squad that Lopetegui gets to work with. Now, this for me is an important time because you get don't forget you get Max Kilman still staying behind, etc. You get a few players, Debo possibly. So you're going to get some players that are going to stay, and the manager can work with them. And I like now the idea that he's got these couple of weeks with Bowen. That's going to help having your captain there. So look, yeah, bad news for Jarrod Bowen, but you know, hate to say it, you know, it had to be a selfish, but I think it's pretty good news for West Ham. Come on your minds.